I'd like to thank you for inviting me on the show. It's such an honour to be here, and I'd just like to say that when I'm not playing Xbox with my mate Thor, I really like to listen to my favourite podcast, Pop Culture Pasta. Hey Dave, I'm thinking about doing another revolution. Do you want to join up? I might need some help with organising the pamphlets though.
Pop Culture Pastor.
So Cody, I was perusing Twitter, or X, colloquially, I can't say that word.
I don't know if that's a colloquialism or not.
Well, it is, because I just said it was. I just made it up. Anyways, I was on X, not the website.
Yes.
Let's not get confused. And I saw video of Taylor Swift ending her Eras concert down in Argentina. Oh. And she's, walking off stage and she's waving, and then she turns to where she's going down like the gangway or whatever. And then she starts running. And I'm like, oh, and then there's Travis Kelce. And she was so happy to see him. And they they kissed. It was like a romantic movie, like where they're like at the end where she's running towards him. And it was like, oh, this is real. This is real. And because it's getting more and more real, I feel like right here at the beginning, before we get into what we're talking about today, we just got to talk about this, because we are licensed pop culture pastors.
Or just pastors in general.
Or just pastors. But because we're pop culture pastors, I got to say, we would be perfect to officiate a Travis Kelce Taylor Swift wedding. Because one, we are licensed pastors. Two, we are Chiefs fans. And three, Taylor Swift is like the biggest thing in pop culture.
And I've been a Swiftie since she was country.
Cody's been a Swiftie since she was country. So it's all on you, dear listeners. You need to make this go viral. Go viral so that they know that they have pastors ready and waiting to make their wedding the best wedding ever. Because you don't want those overly serious pastors, the stuffy guys who, dearly beloved, we are gathered here today. I mean, we might say that, but not like that.
Not unless you wanted me to. And then I can switch it up.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Travis, my man, Taylor, consider your friendly neighborhood pop culture pastors.
I did really appreciate the point in the concert where Taylor changed the lyrics to one of her songs to talk about the guy from the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh. And I'm like, oh.
Did she now?
I wonder who that is.
Patrick Mahomes.
No, this is totally happening, you guys. They're getting married. They're getting married. Anything less than that, and I will be devastated. And if we don't get to do the wedding, I'll be devastated.
If nothing else, they just look like they're just having the best time supporting each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's great. Bend your mic down just a little bit. There you go. There you go.
Now right. Jason has joined in on the conversation.
Yeah. Welcome. This is Pop Culture Pastor, as if you didn't know, because we mentioned it 5 times already. Taylor, check out the podcast. Please, Travis Kelce. I know, listen, the Kelces have the biggest podcast on the planet, not named Joe Rogan right now. And so
just slightly above Pop Culture Pastor.
We're small change. We're small fry, but come on, Trav. We love you, and we want the best for you. And we listen, it's not just a ceremonial thing for us. We can even get in a little premarital counseling for you both. I'm assuming prenups won't be necessary because you're both rich. I mean, you're not as rich as her, but who is? Am I right?
He's getting there.
He's getting there. He's got a long career after football waiting for him. He's funny. He's got a lot of charisma. He could be an actor or a commentator, whatever he wants to do. Or he could just follow Taylor around. Support her.
For all I know, he wants to start a Twitch account and start playing video games for a living.
Hey, Cody, your microphone's.
I know mine is off.
Just down a little. Down a little, not up a little. Down a little.
No,
there we go.
I gotta change it.
Okay.
Literally, Shaquille O'Neal was using my mic.
Oh, God, look, we have Shaq in one time. And you never stop complaining about it. We're people who know people here at the Pop Culture Pastor
Lair. I missed that episode, I guess.
It was a special episode. It was only for our Patreon people.
Oh, that explains
Yeah.
it. I'm not paying extra to listen to you
Even
guys.
though we don't have a Patreon.
We don't yet.
Okay. Pop Culture Pastor is the podcast you're listening to. My name is Dave. Cody's here.
I am.
And Geek of the Round Table, Jason Giesemann is here. Welcome back, Sir Jason.
It is great to be back at the round table.
Also, Jason's son is here, Simeon. It's his birthday, but he does not have a microphone.
So shout out, but you don't get to talk about it.
He does have headphones, though, which made me feel like I should include him. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We are here to review The Marvels. As we always do, a comic book nerdy movie comes out. We're going to review it. So we went and saw The Marvels last night. And we're going to talk about it. And before we even get there, you guys, I feel like I need to ask this question. Just because I want to, it's almost going to be like a disclaimer. I want to make sure that anything we say is not going to be lumped into a category. Because usually, especially with Brie, who plays Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, there's this like toxic kind of back and forth that happens in the fandom. And because she's been political at times, and something about like if a woman, women are somehow held more accountable to being political than men. Like if you're a woman celebrity and you're political, it seems to be much more harsh of the backlash. And so right off the top, I want to go around the table here and say, answer the question, where are you at with female-led superhero movies? Jason, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Where are you at with female-led superhero movies?
I love them if they're a good story.
Yeah.
If they're fun, if they're exciting, just like any other superhero movie. I don't care what gender they are or what race they are or what group of people they represent. That's not what I'm there for. I'm there to have some fun and see somebody kick some bad guy butt and see a good story play out in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's where we'd all be. Cody, where are you at with female-led superhero movies?
I'm a fan of quite a few. And I will say, one of the female superhero movies of last year that got bashed by this podcast, yes, I'm talking about Thor Love and Thunder.
Okay. I don't remember that, but
Just because Thor has long hair.
No.
No.
I mean, literally, like, if you're viewing that movie, who is the main hero? It's not Thor. It's Jane Foster Thor.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Valkyrie's
a heavy character.
Heavy character. And then even Love in the Love and Thunder title becomes a superhero type person at the end.
Yeah. And for my own, I don't mind female-led superhero movies at all. In fact, I quite enjoy taking my two daughters to the movie, and especially Captain Marvel, the first one, and then this one, The Marvels. I enjoy watching them watch a female who, one, can be bold, can be strong, doesn't need someone to rescue them, can be the one who's independently confident that they can be that place in society. So I just wanted to get that out in the open here right off the bat, because anytime you offer any sort of critique for these movies, that toxic back and forth tries to take over. And they're like, well, you just didn't like the movie because you don't like women. Oh, okay.
Can I offer an example?
Yeah, go ahead.
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. It's a great example.
Incredible movie. Loved that. Loved watching that with my wife and my daughter. Wonder Woman 1984.
Not so much.
No.
And like it had Pedro Pascal in it. Like somehow that movie like ruined Pedro as a person.
The casting was above and beyond the best part of that movie. And being an 80s kid, I really wanted to like it, but it was just not. And it had nothing to do with being female led. It had to do with the story, the direction, and the choices, which I think we'll talk about later, that they made.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will also point out I am a Brie Larson fan. I go back not only to her stint as Abed's girlfriend in Community, but I also go back to Scott Pilgrim versus the World when she plays Envy.
Yeah. I will say also before we move on, that the female-led hero movies do have some other things they need to worry about because of the toxic back and forth. The movie studios themselves will make these movies sometimes and be afraid to give them weakness. Ray Skywalker! I'm sorry. I got a little tickle in my throat. And when you don't give them a weakness, and frankly, the first Captain Marvel may have fallen into this category. If there was a fault with that movie, it's that Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, is a little overpowered.
Can I offer that point? When you don't give them weakness, that makes the watcher have to give them a weakness. So sadly, what is the weakness that you are going to give a female-led hero if they don't have one already? Typically, it's going to be, well, their gender is what makes them weak. And that is not the case in these movies. You want your hero to have a weakness, and if they don't give you one, you're going to project one upon them.
Yeah. And so the first Captain Marvel, the big problem with that movie, and I liked it. I liked the first Captain Marvel. But the big problem with it is they don't really give Carol any sort of weakness, and that includes emotionally in her relationships, which they do try to dive a little more into this time with her relationship with Monica and the Rambos as a whole. But it still suffers from, I don't think they did Brie Larson, the actress, any favors, because Captain Marvel is largely a kind of wooden character. She just doesn't get to show emotion very much. And that carries over a little bit into this film.
Oh, it carries over a lot into this film.
It carries over a lot into this film.
There's one scene in particular that I know we'll talk about where I'm like, you should be showing more emotion.
Yeah.
Way more emotion.
So let's do just a broad overview of this movie. Essentially, the movie starts right at the end of where the series Miss Marvel ends up, where she uses her powers and all of a sudden she goes flying through her closet door and Captain Marvel is in her place. And we find that the three Marvels, you have Monica Rambeau, Captain Marvel, and Miss Marvel, are switching places every time they use their powers at the same time.
I call Monica Spectrum.
Yeah, but they don't call her that until... Do they call her that at all?
They don't ever actually call her that. It's an option given.
Miss Marvel throws it out.
She throws it out near the end?
She throws it out when they're doing let's come up with a name for you and us.
Yeah. And so, that's the conceit of the movie, basically, is that the first act kind of deals with them trying to get that all under control, figured out, while also fighting Kree bad guys in various different places, because some of the Kree gets transported into the into the Khan home, which is super entertaining, by the way. And the first act of the movie kind of deals with them trying to learn and figure that out, while the second act of the movie is them pursuing the bad guy, which turns out to be the Kree, I guess. But they do a decent enough job pointing out that, like, well, they're desperate, right? Jason just gave a word at church this morning about what desperation causes. And so I give you a little shout out as a pastor there.
Thank you.
But yeah, so they're the bad guys, but like their world's dying and they're desperate. They're trying to, they're trying to steal resources from other places. And so then the second act of the movie is them kind of chasing down the leads and figuring out what's going on, who's behind it, and what they're doing. And then the third act of the movie is the fighting against that.
Is bananas.
Yeah. And so
BANANAS.
Yeah. We're going to talk about the third. The three acts of the movie. We should just go ahead and talk about this right now. I think we all enjoyed ourselves. Before we even get to the last part where we rate this film, I think we all had fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was fun. But this movie is bonkers, especially in the third act. They make some choices. They made some choices, y'all. And the first act of the movie is sort of like the buddy cop movie, where you've got like the young, inexperienced guy or gal in this case. Then there's the middle one who's all by the book, by the rules. And then there's the older one who's too old for this stuff. You know, that's kind of
Yeah.
the parts they're playing. So it's very
Yeah.
buddy copish. And as they're trying to work together. And then the second one turns into like fantasy sci-fi, right? There's some, you know, we start getting into the cosmic locales and things like that. And then the third one, I don't even know what to label it. It's like a fever dream.
It's like when you have a meeting for brainstorming and you say, there's no bad ideas. Whatever you think, just throw it up. We're going to put it on the wall and then we'll whittle it down. And what they did is they threw the wildest ideas out first and they said, all right, we're out of time. Let's go with this.
Yeah.
And that's what they did.
Nobody said, someone threw out those first ideas and nobody said, Jason, that's a terrible idea.
No.
That is just
Nope.
an awful. No one said that in the room.
And so I just kept going.
Yeah.
I love how crazy it did go. I don't like how it didn't really flow. That would be a complaint.
Oh, it didn't flow?
It didn't
When you
flow.
have basically three different genres of movie in your one movie, that's a problem.
It's a lack of flow.
Like, listen, this is normally the part where we get into a little detail telling you what happened, but we really just did it. I'm literally, we broke it down into three simple things. This is what happens. The third act does resolve the conflict. I'll tell you that. And it does a lot of other things too. That you're just going to we'll get there.
We will.
We'll get there. So that's the broad take on the movie. Right off the start, let's talk about what was good. What was good in the movie? Do we want to go one at a time? Or do you want to just go through your list?
I mean, I will start off with the best thing, and that's the Khan family.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep.
Just give me the Khan family. I don't even need Miss Marvel, but you can bring her along as well. I just love the mom and dad and the older brother and like their responses, their actions, and like how like the house is getting tore up and mom's like, stop doing that. And then like the brother's too busy being on his phone, and it was great.
Yeah, it was so charming. It picked up right where, like you said, Miss Marvel left off. As Loki has finished this week, and the discussion has been, where is it in all the Disney Plus shows? I think a lot of people are forgetting the charm of Miss Marvel as a Disney Plus show, and this movie and that family just picks up right where that left off, and that's what made the TV show, the show, so charming, was getting to see this family interact with each other and trying to deal with something that they were not anticipating having to deal with, and trying to help their daughter walk through it and learn, oh, wow, we have to change some of our levels of expectation and what is okay and not okay for her to do because of changes in her life. And it's just incredible to watch them play off each other for a bunch of characters, of actors I've not heard of outside of the Marvel universe. I just want to watch them for a few days.
So I do have a question, because I am one that watched literally the first episode of Miss Marvel. Did not like how she treated the parents, and I'm like, nope, I'm done.
Welcome to Teenage Daughters.
I was going to say,
but
teenagers.
like, so in the movie, there's a point where she doesn't need the bangle. Is that in the show as well?
Okay.
Because I didn't watch the show.
No. And in fact, I was very confused by that. So she loses the bangle at one point. And then she's just like doing her powers still without it. And I thought, well, wait a minute. I'm confusing and I'm confused. And that was, I actually have that in my what's not so good. Our Miss Marvel's powers are a little blurry to me.
Yeah.
Because the indication is that they're from the bangle, which we find out in this movie, by the way, are the quantum bands, which is very cool. We'll get to that. But yeah, when she goes on doing it, I guess we're leaning into the part where we found out she's a mutant in Miss Marvel. Spoiler alert. But yeah, Jason, did you watch all Miss Marvel, the series?
It seems, if I'm trying to follow their logic of where they went without telling us that's where they're going, is very similar. The bangle was like the spark and caused things to be able to happen to begin with, but the more she wears it and uses it, the more it kind of absorbs into her and kind of releases that mutant gene. And that's where I have to take it logically.
Okay, I can
in
go
order
with
to
that.
follow along. They don't express that at all. Well, it's just all of a sudden she can go without the Bengals.
And look, I'm just going to be really honest with you. This is not a movie where I get hung up on that. Listen, we're going to get into this later when we grade out this movie, right? And we give a critique to it. And we've been harsh on some Marvel movies recently.
Always have, always will.
But
Some have been very... That's what they've deserved.
They made a lot of choices in this movie, and they made a lot of bad choices. However, if you give me a good time, I am way less likely to dwell on the things that I think are weird or wonky or where you made a wrong choice. And even though I'm going to say that, yeah, that her power's a little blurry for me because you didn't really spell that out for us, I don't really care.
But this does bring up something important going forth with Disney is if you have people who don't tune into the series, who don't know anything about this character, you might want to flesh out a little bit because there's no reason that Captain Marvel should know anything about Miss Marvel.
Right.
Monica does just because she has the tablet, but like that's not common knowledge for the viewer going into it unless you watch the Marvels, which not many people did according to their ratings.
Yeah, and that's another layer of this that I want to kind of hit on too while we're on that subject. Miss Marvel is at the beginning of the downward trend for Marvel and Disney Plus, the Disney Plus series and all that. And as such, it gets judged in the context of where it takes place. So like Secret Invasion, for instance, is not good. But it has like 3 of its episodes are like the 3 worst rated things on Rotten Tomatoes for Marvel. And I don't know if that's super fair or if it just happens at a really bad time. And this movie comes at a pretty desperate time for the MCU. And so I've read a lot of reviews. I've seen a lot of people saying, this is the end of Marvel, this movie. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, they made some weird choices, but I was entertained. Shazam 2 got this same sort of treatment where people just bombed on that movie. Because why? Because DC had been struggling. Warner Brothers was struggling. But the movie Shazam 2 itself was fine. It was not a disaster. It was fun. And this movie has a lot of similarities to that, to be honest.
In pop culture, we have this in a lot of different things where things that are built up and then become so popular, at some point there's only one direction to go, right? And so it becomes so popular that then people start looking for the things to bash. And then when you have decisions by studios and people that help you bash it, it just continues it further. And so I think that's where we're at, that we're having a hard time looking at this like, this is a fun superhero movie. No, this is a Marvel movie. We're expecting Endgame, right? Well, we're not going to get that every time.
No.
And this is a perfect movie to show that you can have a good movie and it not be, I mean, even though the world was at stake, an end of the world, you're on the edge of your seat at all moments because of the stress that they're putting you through watching these heroes. No, it was fun.
Yeah. You're not getting Endgame. You're getting kittens floating in space, and you're going to like it. That's what you get.
Although
He's not kidding.
This will bring up something that I don't like when we get to the parts I don't like.
Yeah. So just to wrap up that first point of what's good, the Khan family. Oh man, that series worked, I think, because of the charm of Iman Vellani and her family, the actors that play her family, their interaction. And the best parts of this movie are them. Honestly, Miss Marvel and the Khan family are the best bits of this movie that really work.
So I will say I actually like Monica. I think
she's great. Yeah.
I think Monica is played well, is played within the structure of what I would have expected. Captain Marvel, I'll hold off on.
Yeah. Monica Rambeau, by the way, her name is Tiana Paris is the actress that plays her. And yeah, she's fantastic. She's very good as well. The next thing I would say, if you all don't mind me going next, because this plays into that, Kamala's hero worship of Captain Marvel throughout the entire story is adorable. Starting with Captain Marvel being in her room and being a little weirded out that her pictures and drawings of her all over the walls. And so, yeah, the ongoing gag that she is just awestruck and starstruck to be even near Captain Marvel, that's funny, really pays off in the film.
What happened to the pixie cut?
The pixie cut? Well, her hair grew back. Also, test audiences didn't like it, so Feige changed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a valid question because
sure.
that was what Endgame was all about on Twitter was Brie Larson has a pixie cut.
The pixie cut gave test audiences the wrong idea about Captain Marvel's personal choices, and they just thought, we don't want them thinking about that, so let's put her hair back. I hate that stuff, by the way. The test screenings they do and the questions they ask. It's no wonder. So Marvel, and we'll get into this later too, Marvel known for changing things up all up until the last second and are now so desperate they're kind of basing a lot of this on test marketing, showing this movie to people, then taking their reactions to it and like changing things drastically. And
by the way,
we're joking about her hair.
If they're going to do this, why can we not get in those test audiences so we can tell them what they should actually be doing? Who are they testing this
Honestly,
on?
Jason, I've thought that many times. I'm like, I am a comic book nerd, and you should want my opinion because I'll tell you look, I'll put myself out there as a consultant for Disney right now. I can tell you where you guys are messing up. You want to know what your problems are? I've got the answers, and it's because it all has to do with not the normies, not the normal people who go see this movie once. It's all about the nerds. It's the comic book nerds that love these movies, and we're seeing it 4 or 5 times in a theater. That's what you've lost.
Yes.
And that's why your box office is receding a little bit. And I can tell you exactly the problems.
So I like to think that the people that do the test audience stuff, it's like that episode of Community where Chevy Chase gets selected to be one of the Dr. Spacetime reviewers for the American series and goes completely against everything that the British series was about, and Abed's just mortified.
Oh, Dr. Spacetime. That's fantastic. I forgot about those episodes. What else is good?
The musical number. That was entertaining, fun, and hilarious.
It was very entertaining.
Jason, what else is good? I can't comment on that right now because it's not on my what's good list.
Now, it didn't always make sense to me, but the way that they pulled off the switching of places and that it didn't get boring to me that it was happening. They kept it entertaining. And at first, you're like, the first scene, you're like, oh, yeah, this is really fun. But they can't keep this up. Well, they did.
Yeah.
And all of the fight scenes, they kept switching places. And you see them develop and grow. And there's like a montage of them on the spaceship.
Training montage
of them learning how this works exactly. And I thought, they can't keep this up, but they did. Now, the issue I had is it didn't seem like every time they used their powers, they switched. So was it specific powers that were? And is that something?
It's when they used them at the same time.
It seemed like 2 of them were at least using them and no one was moving.
I have on my list the teleportation thing was done well. They used it as effective storytelling.
Yes.
And that by rule, I'm guessing that's hard to keep perfect at. But I gave them a little grace on the... Why didn't it happen every time they were using their powers at the same time?
It was so good. It was like a secondary thought of, well, that... They probably should have switched there, but they didn't. Okay. But it was quick. It was fast. They used it for comedy as well as to move the story and the action scenes along. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of, hey, if we're doing this, let's go all in.
It made me go to the dark side where I'm like, do I need to reach out to Neil deGrasse Tyson to make sure the science of this works?
Neil deGrasse Tyson was just waiting for a reason for him to do another TikTok.
He's waiting for your call, Cody.
Yeah. On my list is of good things. No longer will we ever call the Bengals the Bengal again, because they're quantum bands. Holy Marvel nerd alert! They're quantum bands. The actual one of the heroes in the Marvel universe that uses those was named Quasar. He gets a hold of the quantum bands. So the quantum bands have a whole long history in Marvel. That was super nerdy, and I dug it. And they didn't have to do that. Like, they could have just been some space, like, ancient power thing, just like the Infinity Gems, where they don't really spell out where the power comes from or whatever. Instead, but they didn't have to give it a name. They did, and I loved it. I got really giddy when that little piece of information came out. They're quantum bands.
The Bengals.
No, they're quantum bands for us nerds, and you calling them the Bengals will get you kicked out of the club. Yeah, quantum bands. Anything else good?
The musical number was great.
Jason, anything else? Anything else good?
I did enjoy Dar-Benn, the bad guy. I thought she portrayed the desperation and the willingness to do anything to save her people and her planet, I thought, very well.
Yeah.
I thought at first I'm like, they're not developing her at all. And then by the end I was like, okay.
They still leave a lot between the lines, which I don't think, like, look, this movie is what, hour and a half?
Yeah.
It's the shortest Marvel movie ever. You feel that, while I'm grateful for the speed and the fluidity that it creates, did I want a little bit more? That was probably lost in there. The villain, so the reviews you're seeing out there, the villain's getting a lot of the negativity. Like, there was, this is one of the worst Marvel villains. She's played by Zawe Ashton, who is, by the way, the wife of Tom Hiddleston.
Really?
Loki,
yes.
Yeah. Real life married couple. And yeah, I mean, in the third act, you get a little bit of the flashback, the backstory, why they call Captain Marvel the Annihilator.
I think it would be nice to have that sooner. So we could start caring about her cause, and she's not just an evil Kree.
Up until that point, evil. She's like maniacal laugh, like she's sort of your carbon, copy of a villain. And I thought she did fine. I thought she wasn't really served by the way they cut the story.
Her part in the third act was the best part.
The actress
she really came out at that point.
Did good. The story with it, not so much.
Yeah. They let her down a little bit, but when you get that thing down to a thin hour and 40 minutes or whatever they got it to, some things are going to suffer probably, and it's usually the villain. I only have one other thing left on my what's good list, and that was
the musical number.
No, Cody. The musical number was not good.
The bright colors.
It was very bright.
I thought that added to the fun.
The movie looks good for the most part. Feels a little boxy at times for these grand locales they're in. It feels like they're on a studio set a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I was watching a YouTuber the other day, and they were talking about Captain America: The Winter Soldier and how the fight in that movie stretches from the UN building and down roads, and like they're traveling distances as they're fighting. And like I don't know. I feel like Marvel has gotten kind of compartmentalized with their fights just because they're easier to do. Obviously, costs a lot more money, a lot bigger set pieces. And the first action scene where they're learning the teleportation stuff was really good. I thought as the movie went on, the action scenes kind of suffered a little bit, but
even in that one, each space was very small. Like, you had the living room, you had some part of a ship,
they're
the
like
hallway of the ship,
the bridge of her ship at the end,
and so it's all very small, contained spaces. Whereas some of the best scenes, specifically action scenes in Marvel, have been those one shots where you're 2 minutes on the same thing, and you're not cutting in and out. You're just going from one thing to the next.
Well, compare that last action scene in the Marvels to the last one in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. They're still contained. You're still in a one-room space in a spaceship. But the way they did it was so much more entertaining, intriguing, unique. Like, you got to find a way to do something more than just the standard old fight scene.
Yeah.
And I think that was suffered a little bit. The last thing I have on my what's good list was at the end, Kamala as Nick Fury. She echoes the very first things Nick Fury says in the end credits of Iron Man, where she's putting her own team together. And I thought that was clever and cute, where she's recruiting Kate Bishop, who, spoiler, makes an appearance at the end of this film. And I thought it was clever. I like the cleverness when they try to be clever and cute a lot in this movie. And sometimes it doesn't work, but most of the time it kind of works.
Yeah.
I will say the credits, not like the post-credit scene, just the credits.
The animation.
The animation looked great.
Yeah.
I thought the animation when Miss Marvel's kind of talking through her story at the beginning was well done as well.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about that for a second. They do the same thing the Miss Marvel series does, which they tap into this like kind of Scott Pilgrim vibe. And you think, man, all right. So early on in the Miss Marvel series,
Miss Marvel did not do enough as they went through this series. They started
stopped.
out, and then it's like, oh yeah, we're not going to do that anymore.
Why do they give us the taste and then not keep doing it, a la Scott Pilgrim? Like, why not? Whenever Miss Marvel's involved, give us a little bit of the animation, like what she's thinking, what's going on in her head. That would be such a neat trick. It'd be a clever thing to do. And yeah, both times it's just like the series. They gave us this taste right off the bat and then just completely drop it. No more. Yeah. It's such a weird thing.
It is. Very much.
All right. Are we done with what's good? We can move on to what's not so good.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to lead off this one.
You lead off.
I'm not going there yet, Cody.
Oh, I don't know where you're going.
Don't get prepped. Yeah, I know you're getting ready to argue, but I'm not going straight to the musical number.
No, I got bigger fish to fry than protecting the music number.
There is immediate confusion with Nick Fury. This guy has no resemblance to the dude we just saw less than 6 months ago in Secret Invasion. What is going on with Nick Fury? Secret Invasion continues to be the most frustrating piece of Marvel entertainment they've written in a long time. And it's almost jarring how normal Nick Fury is. When last we saw Nick, he was a broken shell of Nick Fury. And now he's just regular old Nick Fury again. Now, it's like, the cool side of the pillow. It's a welcome return. I'm glad we get Nick Fury, but also Secret Invasion is trash. And this movie proves it.
I cannot disagree, so you're good.
And I love that they just ignored it, too.
I have nothing to add. Yeah, it was like Secret Invasion never happened, which is how I like to think about it. Never even finished it because I just couldn't. It just wasn't worth my time to get into characters that weren't the characters that you had been building. This had nothing to do with anything else. And so if I'm going to have to watch a bunch of Marvel stuff to be on top of Marvel stuff, I'm going to skip the things that don't really matter.
Yeah.
And Secret Invasion didn't really matter.
Burn.
Oh, it was wild, man. Just wild. Nick Fury is the same old Nick Fury.
It's good to have the cool Samuel L. Jackson Nick Fury back.
Yeah, it was. It was nice. He's fully back because we're just going to ignore Secret Invasion never happened. I'm glad for that. But if I'm being honest in a continuity sense, I'm super confused. It's like, he kissed a green alien and now he's good.
I guess the only thing I could say to that is because we're dealing so much with multiverse, basically the things I don't like, I'm like, well, that's probably a different universe.
Yeah. Maybe, I guess.
That might be what they're doing, but it's like, make it make sense at some point.
Yeah. Cody, what's not so good?
Okay. I don't know if I'm ready to dive into where I want to get to. So I will start off with, Captain Marvel's reason for not coming back is the stupidest thing I had ever heard. And I said that to you in the theater.
Let's just, hold on. Let's talk about this entire scene.
Oh, my goodness.
Because let's preface this with Brie Larson, Academy Award winner.
Oscar winning.
Oh, my goodness.
The
Larson.
Room, I think, was the name of the movie that she was in. Fantastic in.
The scene that Cody is talking about where she gets, I'm throwing up quotes with my fingers, emotional. I don't know what their notes to Brie Larson were for the character of Captain Marvel. I can only assume they said, well, she's not emotional, but we're going to need you to play emotional in this scene. And what you have is Brie Larson as Captain Marvel so superficially playing like sad / then this happened, and then and then I couldn't come back because I didn't want you to see me like that. The only thing missing was the Wayne's World scene, and I never learned to read. Like, it was so over the top, and I literally looked at you while this scene was going on in the theater and just put my hands behind my head and was like, wow.
Literally, like, no one on Earth knew that she had been responsible for annihilating a whole civilization. She could have came home.
I hope Marvel paid her so much for these movies, because Marvel may have destroyed her career.
And this also goes to to the end scene when she is separated from Maria and she flies back to the ship to Captain Marvel. Or to Miss Marvel. Like, I was expecting tears to be in her eyes. No, Miss Marvel had the tears. She's just like, no, it's okay.
I'm telling you, they did not do Brie Larson any favors with either of the Captain Marvel movies.
It's like they forgot who Captain Marvel is. It's like they thought she was an alien who appears human instead of a human who absorbs the energy and has the alien blood transfusion.
Yeah.
Like, they seem to completely reverse who she actually is. She's a human. Humans have emotions.
Yes.
Let the girl have an emotion.
Because they did that. Have emotion.
Because they did that, she was consistently outacted by a 15-year-old girl they found on the street in Canada.
Yeah. And Monica as well, Tiana Paris. They both get to shine. And poor Brie Larson, what happened? What happened with this character? Because Captain Marvel is without a doubt the most, I don't care about this character in Marvel for me. She is so incredibly boring, and I can only go back to, because they didn't give her any weakness, not even emotional weakness. Because she's a female, they thought, well, we can't give her emotional weakness because that's what movies always do with women. And listen, the problem isn't that they give women emotional weakness. The problem is they don't give men emotional weakness. That's your problem. So the solution isn't, we'll just make her just like the dudes who we write poorly in movies.
Meanwhile, all the men in this movie had emotional weakness.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know about Nick Fury, but we saw his in Secret Invasion. It didn't work.
I would say at the end of this movie, he has a moment where he's trying to be soft and more nurturing as they're packing up Monica's stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. So Brie Larson, God bless her. Bless, as my mom-in-law would say, bless her heart.
Bless her heart.
Yeah.
Bless her heart. She just, this movie is so bad for her. So bad. You thinking Captain Marvel was okay. They could have written her character better. They could have done her more favors. And you think, they'll do her better this movie. No, it's worse. Way worse. So much worse, because they require her to be in these emotional setups with Monica, where Monica's crying about her experience of her mom dying and them needing her. And she's just if you could look inside Captain Marvel's brain in that scene, it would just be there's nothing going on in there. What is happening? It's bad. What's not so good, Jason?
It's time.
What is it? Time?
It's time.
What are we going to talk about?
The memories.
The memories.
Oh,
The memories. The scene with the Flurkins. Multiple Flurkins now. Kittens running about the spaceship, eating all the crew members so that they can be safely ejected back to Earth. while the song from the musical Cats, Memories, is playing in the background, and it literally gave me PTSD to when I went and saw Cats in London, and the fear I had in that moment as the cats were running around the theater.
When we say that in the third act of this movie, they made choices. Oh my goodness, did they make choices. The third act of this movie features many, many kittens running around the space station of Sabre, eating crew members on purpose. Like there's literally an automated voice in the background. Please let the cats eat you. Let the cat, don't run away from the cats. And the whole conceit of this is transportation. They don't have enough escape pods for all the people on the space station. So let the cat flirkin things eat you, and then we'll transport the cats so they can spit you up when we get to Earth. It is bonkers crazy. And at this point, at the third act of the movie, like I told you, it was a fever dream. It is a fever dream. An absolute fever dream.
And they made the choice. And they went all in.
Now, what movie did you compare that to?
What movie could I compare that to? What movie did I compare it to? Okay. Well, there's a scene when the escape pod is leaving and going back to Earth, and the kittens are floating around the escape pod, and all I could think of was the floating slow motion babies falling in The Flash. That's all I could think of. It was like, oh my gosh, they're doing The Flash.
So this movie and The Flash have something in common. That Nia DaCosta, her big movie is Candyman. Mm-hmm. Andy's big movie before The Flash is It.
Okay.
They are horror genre directors.
Okay.
So what they find funny tends to be more on the grotesque.
Creatures in peril.
Which horror is one of the genres that they definitely touch on in this movie. One of 100 different genres they touch on in this movie. Man.
Yeah, when the Flurkins are eating all the people and the tentacles are coming out. I mean, like, look, there's the movie moves too fast, but you can tell what they were doing when the eggs start showing up in the space station.
Yep.
It gives you all the Aliens vibe.
Yeah.
Alien, the movie Alien. It gives you all those vibes because you're like, oh, there's an infestation going on, and they're all Flurkins. They're all kittens that eat things.
Meanwhile, their response to this is, let's take all of these Flurkins down to planet Earth. What could go wrong with that?
Yeah, nothing.
Someone's going to have to explain to me why Nick Fury has such a place in his heart for Goose, the thing that took his eye.
This is almost as frustrating to me as when at the end of Eternals, there's this giant stone person coming out of the earth and nobody looks at it or addresses it ever again.
No one has the same reaction as they should.
We have all these kittens eating people with their tentacles coming out and grabbing them, and nobody's going to say anything. It's going to be like it never happened.
Because Nick Fury should absolutely be Chubbs Peterson from Happy Gilmore.
Yeah,
he should see the cat and be like, "You get that cat away from me!" But he's not. He likes it, and you're just like, you literally lost an eye, bruh.
So it kind of creates the Jurassic World dilemma where, like, oh, we're just fine with the dinosaurs roaming around the planet Earth. There's nothing wrong with it. No one's noticed. It's all good.
There's acting like you can control these creatures.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
That whole scene is, just bonkers crazy. Bonkers. Next on my list, there's a scene in the movie. It's maybe the end of the second act where the bad guy has destroyed a Skrull refugee colony. And so in order to get the refugee colony of the Skrulls out of their movie, they had to do something with them. Deus Ex Valkyrie. Deus Ex Valkyrie. Valkyrie just shows up out of nowhere. Apparently, her and Captain Marvel have some sort of relationship that has not been alluded to in any way.
In game, shared the all-female hero saving the world scene.
So Captain Marvel left the galaxy and only has contact with Nick Fury and Valkyrie.
Yeah.
That's what we're going with.
Valkyrie, who apparently lives in a Norwegian fishing town that is now New Asgard. So you're telling me that she also has the technology to keep up to communicate with Captain? I'm just not buying it. That was super weird, super out of place. And then their familiarness was super strange as well. Like, I'm just like, what's happening here? Like, it's almost like fan fiction. Because I'm just like, we have no basis for this relationship at all.
I mean, they kind of allude to it in the movie that the entire movie is almost like fan fiction. Let's take a bunch of fan fiction stuff and we're going to put it together and see what happens.
Oh. And they nailed it.
It was wild. It was wild. What else is not good?
I'm glad you said that because I was like, am I the only one that's like, what in the world is happening?
No, there was no setup for
and
that
all
scene
the
at all.
bonker stuff, that is the one I'm like, this doesn't seem to fit.
It was like the actress just happened to be on set that day, and they were like, "Oh, let's put her in this movie."
Okay, so this flows into the thing that I was holding off on, and so it works. During the summer, early summer, they are promoting this as unlike any other Marvel project before. It's silly, it's fun. People will be like, this is a new direction Marvel has never treaded before. But if I describe, there's 2 or 3 female superhero leads. There is Valkyrie making an appearance. There's silliness. There's random animals doing weird things. There's singing. What have I just described? Am I describing Thor, Love and Thunder, or am I describing this movie? It has been done, and it was done better in Thor, Love and Thunder. It actually flowed. It actually had some story to it. My issue is with the people that are like, oh, this is a great movie, and if you hate it, that's on you. And they spoke ill against Thor, Love and Thunder. Get off my lawn. If you like both, I'm great with it because I actually like this one. Not saying it was Citizen Kane by any stretch of imagination, but like this is like another Marvel project, but it just wasn't done as good.
This movie is better than Thor, Love and Thunder.
How dare you?
On one condition alone. They stay truer to the characters. My whole complaint with Thor is that they made Thor an absolute joke. And in the comic books, it's never a joke. Thor's like one of the most serious like he's almost as serious as the Punisher. Like those comics are never a joke.
But he was never this broken before, Dave.
I know. We like our heroes super broken.
And apparently that makes us really ridiculous when we're broken.
Jason, do you have any more what's not so good on your list?
Are we ready to talk about the end credits scene?
Oh, sweet. We're going there.
Generally, I like it. But I have some major critique.
Okay.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
All right. So let's talk about the end credit scene. The end credit scene, Monica sacrifices herself to be on the other side of the wormhole that she has to close with her joint powers, the powers that she's borrowed from Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel. And she's on the other side of it. And she's like, I knew I would be. As Captain Marvel races, like one of the probably the only emotionally effective scene from Captain Marvel's point of view, as she's speeding towards the wormhole to try and rescue Tiana Paris's Monica character.
But then that loses all emotion immediately after.
Yeah. She doesn't continue the emotion.
Oh, well.
Yeah. And then let's like, hey, Miss Marvel, you want to awkwardly hug? Yeah, let's awkwardly hug. But yeah. The end credit scene is Monica wakes up and she is in the X-Men headquarters, for lack of a better word, because we see her mom, who in whatever reality Monica's ended up in, who is Binary, the character, a Marvel Comics character, Binary, and none other than the Blue Beast himself, voiced by Kelsey Grammer. Having a conversation and talking about them while she's dumbfounded. She plays that great, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm just glad that he's getting work after this Frasier spin-off or reboot
Yeah. So I have problems with this as well, but go ahead,
So
Jason. I cede the floor to you.
I like the concept, and I like that we're starting to get some answers and direction for what's happening, and where we all think we're headed, of everybody kind of being absorbed in. What I don't like is it looks so rushed and hurried.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't flesh out, and the look of Beast is awful. I am not an artist whatsoever. I draw stick figures when I have to draw something. And I thought, what in the world? These are highly paid professionals. That tells me they didn't have time.
Yeah, FX continues to be a problem for Marvel.
Through most of the movie, I'm like, okay, this is fine. These are fine effects. There's some scenes that are not as on par as others, but that one is the one that really bothered me because this is Beast.
Yeah.
Beast is cool, and you have made him look cool for 2 decades now.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do it for 30 seconds.
Yeah, the FX, you're right. I would echo that. It looks super rushed, super unsettling would be the word I would use. When the VX isn't great, it's unsettling.
What is that term?
He looks shiny. He's supposed to be furry, not shiny.
They have a term, and they used it a lot in Chip and Dale, the Disney Plus movie, of the characters that just don't look right.
Yeah.
That's what he looked like. He looked like one of those characters from Chip and Dale that you're like, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. It's cool. The story point they're trying to do is cool. That's fine.
Yeah.
You're working in some X-Men. However, because I know the context, because you're desperate, and that's why it's in there.
Yeah.
Because you knew no one was going to go see this movie, which, by the way, the numbers say no one is going to see this movie.
It was shockingly trending below The Flash.
It is
which
going
is bad.
to be the
That's
worst
criminal, people.
Marvel movie intake ever. That is a big problem. And you put in this scene at the end of it because you were desperate. Then, here's my my crackpot theory. Then you leaked the scene yourself. I would bet my house on it that they leaked it so people would know that, hey, there's X people in this movie, and it didn't work. Nobody's going to see this movie.
Because I'm not going to see a whole movie for 30 seconds that I can see online.
So it was somewhat cool, but also seemed really desperate, and it's kind of a turnoff in that regard. Mm-hmm. What else is not so good? Do you have any more? Because I have a short list.
I will say, just like when Brie Larson's in... So they didn't really flesh out why Brie Larson's Captain Marvel all of a sudden can't use her powers at times.
She couldn't use it because they were teleporting.
No. There was times that like she tried to use it, and it looked like she couldn't like get it to work. Kind of like in Watchmen with the owl.
There are all sorts of pieces of this movie that feel like something got cut that was important for us to know what was happening. That happens more than a few times where you're just like, I feel like there's something we should know here that got cut. Because I don't really understand it. Miss Marvel's powers, Captain Marvel's powers. Yeah, I agree with that.
My son points out Simeon, that when they're right before in the musical scene, all of a sudden Captain Marvel is wearing a dress, and there's really no... I think that's one of those points of what is happening. When did she get these powers to just be able to transform?
There was no powers. It was just a musical scene. Weird things happen in musicals.
Apparently.
That planet. You can instantly transition.
We just
into
don't know
clothes.
enough about the culture.
Let's talk about the musical scene for a second.
Such fun.
Nope. So weird. So weird.
So I will tell you, it wasn't as weird for me as I think it was for you, because I had seen on YouTube an out of theater review that talked about, and this is how they described it, a singing, dancing planet. So in my brain, I thought, why is the whole planet dancing, like the object in space itself singing and dancing? So that's what I was expecting. When we got this, I was like, oh, okay. That's not as crazy.
Yeah.
It's not often when we can compare movies, things that show up in the movie theater, in quote unquote what Marty would say is cinema. To things that happen on TV shows. But there's a thing in TV shows when you let the audience know that you have officially run out of ideas. It's called jumping the shark. Okay? For many, many television episodes, that thing, the jumping of the shark, has been the musical episode in a heretofore not musical TV show. The Flash did it, among others. It's been in tons of TV shows. Scrubs.
Yeah, but Scrubs had music throughout.
Yeah.
It's kind of...
Community.
Tell me you're out of ideas without telling me you're out of ideas. Oh,
musical.
The musical scene where it just is musical for no apparent reason. That whole section of the movie is just there so we can have this awkward moment for Carol Danvers.
Well, it builds up the tension.
But it didn't have to. It could have just been any alien race. Why did it have to be someone she was in a political marriage with? Why did it have to be awkward? Why did they have to only communicate in song? Because you made choices.
On a planet that's over 99% water, but it appears like nobody ever goes in the water or uses the water for any resources whatsoever.
Loved it.
It looked great. Looked wonderful. No, we don't frolic in the water. It's just a nice backdrop.
It's
Yes. Yeah. Well, you got to be singing when Carol shows up.
Speaking of the water, we need to talk about how the evil plan, the evil person's plan, the bad guy's plan, is essentially the bad guy's plan in Spaceballs. It's essentially the same plan as the Star Wars spoof movie by Mel Brooks, Spaceballs, where we're going to steal the air on the planet, we're going to steal the water of the planet, and then finally we're going to steal the Earth's sun, which, holy Neil deGrasse Tyson. That's not like, as soon as that is happening, I'm like, no. That thing is not generated. If you generated enough force to suck up the sun, you're sucking up all of our solar system with it.
Slash, how did that planet not flood?
In a movie,
it's 99% water. Jason just said it. And it sucks up the water and it starts dumping it on their planet, which is their sun's dying and they're in the middle of a drought. And you're just like, oh no. No, that's Flash Flood City. This is of Noah proportions.
Yeah, in a movie where we are dispensing all sorts of belief of humans being able to absorb powers from energy, of being able to travel through space and fight other aliens' wars, of this superhero that can just basically turn into an asteroid and destroy planets at a moment's notice. Where there's a planet where their language is all in song and it's the same words as if they were speaking, but they can't understand you if they're speaking. We're supposed to believe that you open a wormhole, it takes all of the air from one planet. It's exactly the type of air that you need for your planet, and it fills the exact amount of space of atmosphere. On another planet that's full of all water, is going to take the exact amount of water that you need to fill the rivers and the lakes and the oceans of your water, and you can suck a sun through.
The writer's room for this movie literally thought of all these crazy scenes they wanted in there, and then someone was like, "Hey, wait a minute, we haven't fleshed out the bad guy at all. Why are they getting themselves into these scenes?" And then someone in the corner of the room eating nachos was like, "Hey, you remember that movie Spaceballs? I think we should just do that one." It is, when we say they did not put any thought into the bad guy. Oh, they did not put any thought into the bad guy or the motivations or the problem motivating the bad guy, because none of that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah. Like early on in the movie, I'm like, okay, why am I supposed to care about the villain's plight in this? Because usually there's some motivating factor. They don't explain it. We get to the end. They kind of explain it, but they don't put a lot of effort into it. And so I just think, these bad guys are continuing to be bad. Yep. Okay.
Literally, we're led to believe that Captain Marvel destroyed the AI that was the leader, essentially, of that race. And in the, 5 years since then? They had a civil war that destroyed their planet and sun. And their answer to that is not take the few people left. Because what are we talking about, the population that's left? of their planet.
Not much.
It couldn't
Didn't
be
seem
more
to be
than the
very
Skrulls.
much. Yeah.
The Skrulls are off being refugees places. Their answer is like, no, clearly what we will do is we will go to other planets like this one that's 99% water and suck it up in a giant black hole of our own making and then pour it out onto our planet.
And then the real reasoning is not because we're trying to save our people, but because we're trying to get back at this person who destroyed our way of life.
Yes.
Because we're mad.
We're throwing an epic intergalactic temper tantrum.
Yo, listen, that is the ultimate. Like you have to go on a journey to follow the fact that Captain Marvel feels guilty about it. Like, no, that's not your fault.
So, like throughout this, the bad person in this movie, like, gets hit 1,000 times. Doesn't take really any damage whatsoever. Life's good. She's rocking, and
she appears to be impervious.
Yes, and then finally, like, looks like she might be knocking on heaven's door. She gets cut, and we have a moment of sympathy, and we have a plan to save her planet, and then it's like, psych, I'm taking this bangle and I'm leaving.
Yeah, that was wild. Yeah, they make you feel sorry for her. They make you think she's coming to the light, and then like, yeah, she's like,
no, I'm manipulative so I can continue my temper tantrum.
I was never hurt, and even if I was, we're gonna pretend like it doesn't hurt me anymore.
And Marvel does what Marvel does and kills off another villain completely.
Oh man.
And quite frankly, as they're fighting her with their powers, every time they shoot their powers at her, it absorbs into the band.
Which they identified early on in the
right
movie.
away.
Why are
and
they
so
keep
what do
using
they
your
keep
powers?
doing? They keep shooting their powers at her. I'm thinking, shoot at the ceiling above her. She's not impervious. Let's do something here besides giving her more energy and more power.
Yeah.
And take her hammer.
Unfortunately, they didn't put a lot of thought into the common sense of the movie, so you can't really go far in any direction with common sense. But if I list off, I have several small things here that I'm going to list off in fast order here. Could have done without flirkin' licking. Could have done without the flirkin' licking itself. That was gratuitous and was completely unnecessary.
Nasty.
And wasn't really funny.
No.
It was just like, what? Carol's explanation scene of why she's the Annihilator is just corntastic. It was really bad. And I said this, we talked about this earlier, but Miss Marvel's powers are blurry for me. I'm not really sure what's providing them, what's happening. Jason gave a pretty good explanation, but he's just connecting the dots himself, which I assume is what we're supposed to be doing.
It's weird the things that they had a dialogue about in this movie that kind of took up a chunk of what could be continuing the action or the narrative. And they talk it out, but then they don't flush out some of the more crucial things.
Yeah.
Like Miss Marvel's powers.
Deeper themes. Like, look, this movie's not deep. It's not deep, but there is one reference to praying.
Yes.
When they're re-entered, they're in the escape pod with the Flurkins and the Khan family, and someone in the Khan family begins to pray in a foreign language. And Nick Fury at first, like, seems like he's upset. He's like, "Are you praying?" And they're like, "We're sorry, we'll stop." And he's like, "No, don't stop. Amen." And he becomes like a Pentecostal preacher.
I love it.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. I'm just like, oh, wow, what's happening right now? Nick Fury's going super, super spiritual. And so that's about as deep as it gets.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's anything deeper than that.
I mean, I can pull some scriptural narrative out if you want.
Please do.
Let's not. It's time as we make time for, especially in Loki watch-alongs. But it's now time for Cody's crackpot theory.
Yeah.
Cody,
Okay.
Love it.
Hit us with your crackpot theory.
So this goes across multiple recent works of Marvel. Mm-hmm. You notice that what color Monica glowed?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you notice what color Loki is when he's existing outside of time?
He's green.
He is green. This is true. Do you notice what color the Scarlet Witch is during Multiverse of Madness?
She is red.
Bright red.
Bright red. Do you know where I'm going with this?
All the colors of the rainbow.
Reality Stone, Time Stone, Space Stone.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if just because evidently time is just one big loop and everything's connected and yet not connected, and maybe because I know that the collector says, well, there was 4 entities that created the Infinity Stones, but maybe they just plucked them out of potentially fallen heroes at the end of a major secret invasion or secret war.
We just finished Loki watch-alongs. So what I want to say is, like, I want to get real deep with you. I want to be like, yeah, they totally they could be doing this. But also, there's no way the writers of this movie were being that deep. There's just no way. I will say they seem to be playing around with the imagery of the Infinity Stones a lot, because every time they went through time, did you notice the colors that flashed across the screen were cycling through the Infinity colors?
Yep.
Yeah, and like literally they were doing that because it went yellow, purple. What was some of the other ones? Red, the reality, and then green. Like they were intentionally switching the colors. You could see it bathed on the actors as they were flying through.
Yes.
So they were definitely toying around with
the
it.
Infinity Stones will make an appearance later.
Okay.
Crackpot theory of the week.
Certainly crackpot. Who is the winner of this movie, Cody?
I'm going to go with, let's scroll, Zenobia Shroff. Mama Khan. She won the movie for me.
I will not. I will accept anyone in the Khan family. The older brother was great too.
Older brother was a close second.
Oh man,
Dad didn't get enough lines this one.
No.
Where Dad, I thought in the one episode of Miss Marvel that I watched, was my favorite character because he was just trying to be a good, loving dad.
They're playing him as the straight man in this movie, but the older brother, I was like living vicariously through him because that's exactly because I grew up on 80s comedies or in 80s action adventure movies. So I am that guy who in the middle of intense situations will just be cracking jokes.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, and that's what he does through the whole movie. He's like cracking jokes. Not aliens in your house, ransacking it, trying to kill you, cracking jokes. Traveling through space when you have not ever been to space before and it should be affecting you in a certain way, cracking jokes. On a space station while cats are eating humans, cracking jokes. Yeah, it's crazy. The older brother is me. I'm the older brother.
You are.
Don't put me in a serious situation.
Jason, who's the winner of the movie?
I've got a couple. Tiana Paris, when she was in WandaVision, I thought she did well. Mm-hmm. But I think this showed me, okay, she's legit. Like,
yeah,
this is an actress who I want to see. Before I didn't care what else she was in. Now I'm like, what else is she in? What else has she done? Is there anything else I would know her by? And then I think, again, the Khan family makes me want to see another Miss Marvel series on Disney Plus. Yeah. I don't know that we're going to get it because they don't seem to be backing up their good series except for Loki with the second one. But I want to see more of them and see more of her growth. And again, as you alluded to earlier, as she starts collecting Young Avengers, what that looks like.
Yeah. I'll say you're going to see her again. They're making it pretty clear.
Yeah.
And I'll say Iman Vellani is the winner of the movie because they have something with her.
They do.
Like, look, you might not see Captain Marvel again after this movie.
Yeah.
Brie might be done and they might be done with her. Like, you probably might not see Captain Marvel again. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if they did, but if they did bring her back, you may not even see Monica Rambeau again. That might have just been a story point to give us a look at the X-Men, and she just might be trapped in that other reality. But she could. But you're definitely seeing Iman Vellani again, and with her is probably the Khan family. I would not be surprised for them to do a Miss Marvel season 2 after this, because the people that are talking about this movie, the good things about it, they're all mentioning Iman Vellani.
She seems very genuine.
I want to mention representation for all those Swifties out there. They got to see who they are on screen through Kamala Khan. Like that.
Because of her hero worship.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That they got represented very well in this movie.
Yeah, it was great. So yeah, she's the winner of the movie for me. Cody, who's the loser of the movie?
Nia DaCosta, the director. Literally loved Candyman. Her remake, brilliant. This, it doesn't show much direction.
Yeah. It's weird to say, hey, this movie entertained me, but also it is a solid gold mess. Oh boy, is it a mess. And it also weird to say it might not be all her fault. Like, Marvel does what Marvel does.
So Marvel sabotaged her potentially. And this movie seems to lack direction. And with it, I will point out, if my friend Marty just watched this one movie and based his judgment off all superhero movies off this, he would be correct with his statement.
You're still in my loser of the movie.
Loser of the movie, Jason.
Well, I was going to say, anybody who's trying to convince Martin Scorsese or Ridley Scott that this is cinema.
Oh, boy.
That was literally what I was going to say. I'll come up with a different one, though. I think anybody who's a big Captain Marvel fan, like that's their superhero. This is not going to get people on their side because you just don't see Captain Marvel as a person, as a human who has powers.
Yeah. I'm gonna echo that and say Brie Larson.
Yeah.
Brie Larson's the loser of this movie. There's really no way around it. It's almost not fair because the conversation around it was already toxic, based on the political things that go along with, when you're outspoken politically and the kind of opposition you face. The trolls that are out there that are going to just say everything bad about this movie, not because she's in it, but she herself, the actress, just does not have any favors done for her. The character is wooden. It's one beat. And if you're a fan of Captain Marvel, woof. And it's a good thing you didn't call this Captain Marvel 2, because she is like the 6th most interesting character in the movie.
Literally, she might have had more emotions in her car commercials.
Oh, yeah.
Than this whole movie.
She has more emotional depth in those than she does in either one of these Captain Marvel
Driving
movies.
in my car.
All right, we're going to get to the bottom line question, but I need to set this up a little bit, because what I'm going to say before we rate this movie, do you guys remember Ant-Man Quantumania?
Oh, I do.
This movie is better than Ant-Man Quantumania.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you why.
Ooh, I'm going to have a little bit of beef, but
I'll tell you why.
You tell me.
Because Quantumania, at every turn, chose the simple choice. It makes no bold decisions whatsoever. Not once do they try to make a bold story point. It's all paint by numbers. And when things are paint by numbers and it's boring, that's when you dig into the technical stuff. Would I have noticed so much that MODOK was a complete joke if I was more into that movie? No. Would I have noticed Jonathan Majors' performance more of Kang, which was very good, if the movie wasn't just so blah? Probably, yes. But Quantumania made no bold choices. It was just blah. This movie made choices now. They made all the choices. Now, do they all work? Oh, goodness, no. No, they do not. But was I interested? Yeah. It held my attention. And look, this is the thing that's where the fans get an unfair rap. Because we've heard some pushback from Marvel. Listen, that Variety article mentioned that Marvel executives were stunned that Quantumania got such a negative feedback, which is mind-blowing.
Tells me they didn't watch their own movie.
Oh, or they just have no idea why we like these movies.
Yeah.
Why these movies. We want two things. We want you to be true to the characters, to the intellectual property that's already out there, and we want you to tell us good stories. Make bold choices, right? Make bold choices. Ant-Man and Quantumania is so bad.
Is it?
It's very bad.
Is it?
It's very bad, Cody.
Because I can argue the other side of the coin. When you make all the choices, you get a Mod Podge film that doesn't make any sense, doesn't really further any story, and you just have really cool scenes.
But you just described Ant-Man Quantumania, except for the bold choice they could have made where the good guys lose at the end, which is literally the most interesting thing about Infinity War. And they couldn't even do that, which wouldn't normally be a problem because we're used to having shallow villains who Marvel does away with immediately. Except for he's the big bad of the whole stupid saga.
I know. And so I think I was more engaged just because there was actual stakes to the movie, even though the movie leaves you with, did anything really change? Are there actual stakes? And then there's the conspiracy theories of, well, everyone's wearing the same color at the end. And
when you have to go make up conspiracy theories for your movie to matter, that's a problem.
I don't know if this matters after this weekend.
Okay. What I'm saying, though, is this movie, if you entertain me, it doesn't need to matter. That's my point. My point is you didn't make bold decisions with Quantumania, and then you acted like it was everything that mattered. And it wasn't. It was just not a good movie. It was blah. This movie doesn't care if you think it matters or not.
Where like Top Gun Maverick, I will go back and rewatch it because it was entertaining. I know there's no real meat.
Doesn't matter at all.
At all. This I will not go back and rewatch.
And with
that's how I'm going to word it.
Quantumania, you were promised world-changing things. Like this was going to change everything we know about the Marvel Universe, and it literally did nothing.
They pulled the rug on you, jabronis.
They did.
At the end of the day, I'm a big bearded comic book nerd. And if you're trying to make some choices and being somewhat true to the characters, I'll be in. Like, look, this was not cinema. Marty would be right about this movie. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time, especially because it didn't last overly long. Like, you try to make this a 2.5 hour movie, yeah, we're going to have some constructive criticism for you. But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. What are you giving the Marvels out of 10?
Okay.
How many flirkins out of 10? And there were way more than 10 flirkins.
Way too many flirkins.
Like a 5.5 to 6. Like, it was a fun film, but at the end of the day, I don't know if I really needed it in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jason?
Yeah, I would. I was thinking 6 as well. I'll have fun watching it with my kids, but you know, it's not one that I'm like, okay, I got to know everything that's happening. I got to go see what all the Easter eggs are. I've got to go research this. You know, like some of the other movies have been. It's definitely not the best Marvel movie, but it's definitely not the worst. It's a fun movie, and sometimes we just need a fun movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 6. It was an enjoyable hour and 35 minutes or whatever it amounted to. But it was cotton candy for sure. If it tasted good and then it went down and it was poof, gone. But hey, that's fine. Let's end on this question. Is it too little too late for the MCU that Loki was good, that this movie's not a total baffling failure, even though it might be financially? Because here's why the context of this question, is it too little too late for MCU? If this movie happens in the middle of the Infinity Saga, I think it's much more well received. That's the basis of the question I'm asking you. Are we done here?
No. I think
this movie is going to be the lowest MCU financially speaking movie ever.
So what I think is you're not going to necessarily see that great peak. But you'll keep getting projects. You'll keep getting some that are like, whoa, is the MCU back? Because literally we just had Guardians go gangbusters. We've had a Spider-Man movie go gangbusters. It's not like it's out of the realm of will there be financial successes. Captain Marvel, out of all of Marvel's like intellectual properties, I don't know how far you have to go down the list before someone names her. Like, it is not Captain America. It is not the Hulk. It is not Wolverine.
Oh, as a character, she's so uninteresting.
And so it goes way down. And then you have a movie franchise based around her / a kid that worships her, and then her niece. And then it's like, okay, tell me something else. And then there's no real tie-in stakes right now to anything bigger.
She got 2 movies. Black Widow got 1. Black Widow is 1,000 times more interesting than Captain Marvel.
Black Widow's sister's 1,000 times more interesting.
So much more. Oh, my goodness. Jason, what do you think about that question?
So here's where I'm at with Marvel. I think they had come off this great peak. And when they came down, they ran into a perfect storm. They ran into changes in their studio, in their company. They ran into a pandemic. They've now run into a writer strike and an actor strike. They've run into all these things on top of having to create more content for a streaming device that was solely reliant upon Marvel to try to make it any money.
Yeah.
So they have had all these things grouped together. So what they could do before,
I'm going to add one more thing.
Do.
There was one other thing that happened. They got cocky.
They did.
They thought these people are going to eat up whatever we sell them.
We're gonna be one of the top grossing films every film.
Yep.
And that's just not the way it works. That's not what these characters do. Every character is a subsect of the whole. And when you bring those all together, you get everybody. But when you only have a part, you're not going to get everybody. And that's fine. And when you have movies that have different genres or different stories to tell, not everybody who's liking the comedy of Ant-Man is going to like, if they ever eventually get to it, the horror of Blade, right? And so you're going to have different people coming to these, and so you can't expect to be one of the top 5 grossing films of all time with every movie. But because that's where they're set, they're not going to reach that very often, and that makes people who are critical of them think, well, they're not hitting the mark anymore. They don't know what they're doing. Are they struggling? Yes, they've got to get some things figured out, and I'm hopeful between Loki and the story that it told, and now this being just a fun movie to get to sit back and watch, and make some bold choices and have fun on that ride. I'm hopeful that they're moving towards that again.
It's like Dallas Cowboys fans. Like, they won the Super Bowl in the 90s a few times, and then ever since, they're expecting to win the Super Bowl every year, and then,
this is our year.
We make the playoffs and we lose in the first round. Hey, that's okay. A lot of teams have not had that run of success of even making it to the playoffs consistently.
Transformers fans are just out there be like, I'd take one of your Captain Marvels. Just one.
The new Transformers movie was great.
Great? It was great?
Compared to the others, you betcha.
He can't even do it without qualifying it.
Yeah.
Bonus question. Loki ended this week, and everybody's talking about it. Did Marvel intentionally schedule their Loki series, knowing what they had, to coincide with the release of this movie, that the finale of Loki would coincide the same week, within a day, within 24 hours before the release of this movie? Did they do that intentionally?
Yes, because I feel Loki actually, like, the first season came out around, like, it concluded around Christmas when it first dropped. And so this one concluding before Thanksgiving seems a little fishy. Just lines up perfectly with the Marvels.
I think they did, and I think it backfired. I think that's one of the reasons why they're not seeing the numbers come in, is because they had Loki, which was so good, and it ended the night that the Marvels premiered. So the people who were going to go see it that night didn't go see it because they were watching Loki.
The big sweaty nerds get their fix, right? They're like, well, this movie doesn't look good, and I'm still riding high off that Loki. So I can pass on this.
Yeah, I'll wait till it's on Disney Plus now.
But I think they did it intentionally because they wanted the conversation to be balanced. They thought, well, this conversation is not going to go well with the Marvels. So why don't we start Loki here so that it ends right here? And people would be talking about it.
This movie needed Ki-Hai Kwan.
this movie, if it had Ki Hai Kwan, immediately becomes an Oscar-nominated movie in my head. All right. What did you think of the Marvels? Did you see the Marvels? Did any of you see the Marvels? Because according to the financials, you did not. But if you did, tell us what you thought. Even if you didn't, tell us what you think of the way we're describing it. Is this a movie you would go see? Let us know on the social media posts for this episode. As always, make sure and subscribe to the podcast. And if you can, on whatever venue you're listening to it, hit the little thing that it notifies you when we get a new episode. That'll make sure you don't miss any of our content. And share us. That always helps too. As always, thank you so much for listening in. We'll see you next week.